before we had moved down here, I had started getting into smoking weed, and that continued. It
Right.
continued where we moved next door to, where we moved to. My next door neighbor was actually selling weed, so I would smoke with him a lot, and that continued way into adulthood.
Right.
Um, Along with drinking, right after school, Friday
Mm.
nights after the football games, weekend parties, start drinking, and when we moved down with my dad, he got remarried and decided he wanted to move back up north. So
Right.
my brother and I didn't want to move, so we stayed down here and got an apartment, and it was
Child for you.
yeah, it did. It was the summer of I don't remember the year, but sixth grade had just ended.
Okay.
I was getting into seventh grade, and my parents sat me and my brother down one evening and told us they were getting divorced. Right, it was
Wow.
just out of nowhere.
Wow.
Yeah, there was no argument. There was really no, you know, fights in the house or nothing. It was normal, right? Everything was normal up to that point. Dad went to work, and my mom worked part time. And after that, my dad moved out, and my mom ended up working two jobs.
Right.
So my brother and I were just kind of alone, for most of the day, into the nights sometimes. And he gravitated towards his friends, and I gravitated towards rebellion. I started
Mm.
acting out in school. Um, I got kicked out of the regular classes, and I got put into, like, I guess it was like a continuation school. I guess you could say that, right?
Right.
Um, and soon after that, my dad got a new job, and we moved down here to Southern California with him. And I didn't have the audience. I didn't have, um, the familiar faces that I could joke around with. So I just got into my schoolwork. Really, my grades went up. I was getting straight A's again. Um, but before we had moved down here, I had started getting into smoking weed, and that continued. It
Right.
continued where we moved next door to, where we moved to. My next door neighbor was actually selling weed, so I would smoke with him a lot, and that continued way into adulthood.
Right.
Um, Along with drinking, right after school, Friday
Mm.
nights after the football games, weekend parties, start drinking, and when we moved down with my dad, he got remarried and decided he wanted to move back up north. So
Right.
my brother and I didn't want to move, so we stayed down here and got an apartment, and it was party time, and started selling weed actually, and got caught one night after that's a whole nother story in itself, after a big
Wow.
fight. And I got caught with a pound of weed, and the cop kind of gave me a choice. He was like, "Do you sell weed?" And I was honest with him. I said, "Yeah, I sell weed." And he goes, "Let me ask you again." He goes, "You sell weed, transporting intent to sell, or you just don't like to nickel and dime, so you buy a bunch of weed and party with your friends?" And I was,
Right.
that's exactly what I do. So he gave me a ticket, and I went home that night. That was pretty scary.
Fortunate.
Very fortunate. Yeah, very fortunate. I mean, I had a clean record up to that point. I never
Right.
really got in trouble with the law, and that was my first run-in. Um, and I mean, that habit, that and drinking continued um, for a few more years, until I met my wife. Um, we met, and I instantly fell in love, and she got pregnant. We got married, and right after that, I got a offer for a job with the city of LA.
Okay.
So it was great, right? Life was starting to turn around.
You're doing some
Um,
responsible stuff.
yeah, some,
Nice.
right? Some irresponsible things I still kept, right?
Right.
I couldn't drink, I couldn't smoke anymore because of a commercial license and random drug tests.
Okay.
Um, so the drinking increased, right? And
Mm.
the drinking increased a whole lot, and that took a huge toll on my family. Um, Young family, I wanted to provide for them. The money was good, right? The overtime was abundant, so I would work a lot,
Right.
come home and drink, and it was just causing problems.
Mm.
And
Like you talking about alcoholism? Like was it in excess, or how bad was it?
yeah, in excess. I was drinking daily. I would come home either buzzed from having some beers on the way home or after work, excuse me, um, or I would just drink at home, right?
Right.
I wouldn't, I wasn't really like into the bar scenes or um, I didn't want to stay away from my family. So I would just go home and rationalize that, right? At least I'm not out. At least I'm not at the bar. I'm
Right.
at home, you know,
Right.
um, trying to give myself reasons why it's okay to drink like that.
Got you.
But that was in excess, and the food was out of control. Right, I had like no self control. I ended up
Got you.
gaining. I ended up gaining about 100 pounds in a couple of years.
Right.
Um, so
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty out of control until one night I realized how out of control my drinking was.
Okay.
Um, so it was a Super Bowl party that my brother had, and I had my kids with me because my niece and nephew were the same age as my kids,
Hmm.
and my wife stayed home. Was drinking all day, and I could have called my wife and said, "Hey, come pick us up," right? But I didn't. I put the kids in the car. I drove home, and I got home and made some more drinks, and I was sitting there, and it hit me, like, what if you would have gotten a car crash, and what if your kids would have got hurt,
Mm.
you know? Um,
Wow. Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
It's a very possible reality, and
yeah,
it sounds like that was sort of the thing that sort of woke you up.
it did. It did absolutely. I But my wife had been telling me for years, "Daniel, you're drinking too much. You have a drinking problem. You're unhealthy." Um, but instead of once I realized that, going and talking to her, my best friend, "Babe, you're right. I need to get help." Um, I didn't have that courage to go and speak to her, so I made a couple of phone calls. I called my dad, and he didn't answer. I called my brother, and then I
Right.
called my uncle, and he answered it, and he was just asking me questions, and I just let it all out, you know, crying. I have a problem, I'm drinking every day. Because I would drink till I black out. And I'd wake
Mm.
up at 2 or 3 in the morning on the living room floor and crawl to or just stagger to my bed, wake up at 4 a.m., drive to work with a massive hangover, eat some bad food and start that vicious cycle all over again.
Right. Right.
And every day I'd wake up and I'd look at myself and I'm like, dude, why are you doing this to yourself?
Mm.
Why are you doing this? But I wouldn't stop. I had no self-control.
Right. And
Um,
and even when you ask yourself that question, right, you're still trying to figure it out, like what's going on, and you're not getting that
yeah,
answer. So you continue down this path. So
yeah.
you're waking up, you're awoken now. What do you do first? What happens?
So when I was on the phone with my uncle, he says, "Well, who's your healthcare provider?" And I tell him, and he says, "They have a substance abuse program." So I called them the very next day. I
Hmm.
called Kaiser's substance abuse program. Later on that night, I was over there checking myself in. They wanted me to do 30-day inpatient. And at this point, I was an apprentice, right? I'm a power lineman, and we go through an apprenticeship. And if you miss a certain amount of days, a certain amount of hours, there's a possibility of you getting kicked out, right? You
Right.
go back to the job you held before. And I said, I can't miss days like that. So they said, we have an outpatient program. We have meetings 2 or 3 days a week in the evenings. So I said, that's perfect.
Hmm.
That's perfect. So that's what I did. And that was just over 12 years ago. Been
Wow.
sober 12 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that first decision, like it's one thing to realize, but you still have to take that first step and make the decision to follow through. Was
Yeah.
the following through part, was that difficult for you?
At first it was. Yeah, at first it was because I would always tell myself like, "All right, we can just have a few drinks," and then a few drinks would turn into blackout drunk. But when I was sitting with the counselor and he said, "Every time you have that thought, you just have to tell yourself it's not an option, right? Having a few drinks is not an option because you're out of control. You can't control it."
Right. Right.
So
Understand.
getting around with family was hard because every time the family got together, we'd have drinks. Friends, all my friends would drink. So I just have to, every morning I'd wake up after work, because I would leave straight from my yard and go straight to the liquor store.
Right.
And I would drive out the yard, and I'd have that thought and just auto suggest to myself, right? Not today. You can't do it right now.
Hmm.
Um, and it was huge because I always had liquor in the house. I always had beers in the fridge. But that night that I had that realization, I went inside and dumped everything out, right? I just dumped it. I'm not going to throw it in the trash can because I'd probably go back and fish it
Right.
back out, right? It's got to be
Right.
gone.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah. So it was hard at first, but
Hmm.
it got easier, day by day.
What kind of strain did it put on your marriage?
Huge.
Yeah.
It was huge strain. There was a time when my son was 2 years old. I think this was like 2009, and she came home with divorce papers.
Oh, wow.
She came home with divorce papers, and that was another wake up. I had quit drinking that time for about 60 days, I think 2 months, right before I got hired as an apprentice. Um, and being in the power trade, that's kind of like, yeah, we hard day's work, suck down some beers or have a few drinks.
Right.
And it's kind of like it used to be like a tradition, right? If you're going to promote or you're leaving the yard, you have a buy. Usually everybody's getting together at the bar after work. So that happened when I got promoted, and I broke my sobriety, you know, um, and I fell off the wagon.
Right.
But I mean, it was huge. It was a huge strain on my marriage, and not only that, just afterwards, I realized, like, man, if you would have continued this behavior, what are you showing your kids?
Sure. Sure.
You know, you're
Sure.
showing them the same behavior. Like, it's okay, dad has some drinks and he still gets up and goes to work every day. Maybe I can do that, but maybe
Right. Right. Yeah. No,
maybe
I
my
can see
kid
that.
might not be able to handle it.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
see it. I see it. So what was the thing that saved your marriage?
marriage counseling. Marriage counseling. Yeah. After that, we went to marriage counseling after I drank because there was still problems. Um, I would never open up emotionally, right? We'd have conversations about certain problems, and I would just freeze up. That was my defense mechanism. I remember my dad saying that when um, they told us that that they were getting divorced. He's like, "Your brother was really upset. He was crying, and he goes, you just sat there, like stone cold face on your look, a look on your face." And I carried that with me. I mean, for me, that was just like, okay, I guess this is just it. So when we went to marriage counseling, and they gave us tools for me to help open up, and it got better. It definitely got better, and that's why I try and say, like, I coach clients now. I'm a life coach online, and I tell people every day on my stories. A lot of us want to do it, but we have trouble asking for help.
Right.
And if you don't have somebody that's either been through it or has the tools to help you, most likely you won't be successful with whatever goals you're trying to reach.
Hmm.
Um,
It's tough. No question. I'm hearing your story. I mean, as I'm taking it in, I'm just thinking about the ups and downs that you would have gone through and all that you faced. Um, one of the things that you also had to go through is sort of a transformation of your body, because you talked about the weight gain that you had went through, and that was a
yeah.
drastic transformation. I wonder if you sort of talk about that what that exercise or process was like for you.
Yeah, so that was huge for me. It was always something that I wanted to do. I was never happy with my body. I grew up being overweight. I was always the chubby kid, and in high school, I was always second string and the slowest on the football team. Um, and people would tease me, right? I wouldn't want to take my shirt off at pool parties. So I would just make jokes about it, right?
Right.
I would just try and be the funny guy, and hopefully they would laugh with me and not at me. Um,
Gotcha.
so like I said, yeah, at my heaviest when I was drinking, I was almost 300 pounds. And it's crazy just what stopping drinking alone will do, right? Reducing those calories. I lost about 60 pounds, um, and then I gained about 20 back. So right before our 15-year wedding anniversary, my wife and I decided, let's have a big wedding, like a huge vow renewal. Because
Right.
when we first got married, we just eloped. There was nobody there.
Mm,
So we did it big for our 15-year wedding anniversary. And she said, "Look, if we're gonna do this, um, I want to lose some weight because I mean, being the heads of the household, you know, whatever habits we do, we pass upon our kids, like I
that's
was
right.
saying."
That's right.
So we were eating pretty unhealthy and not exercising. And she said, "Yeah, I want to lose weight. If we're going to do this, I want to look good in these photos. I want to look good in my dress."
Sure.
So we joined a transformation camp. It was like a 20-pound weight loss challenge. Um, you pay them, $500. You beat the challenge, and once you get to a certain weight, like their ideal weight of what your height should be, you get your money back. But it was my new addiction. I felt good. I looked better. I was healthier. Um, and I would get up every day at 3 a.m.
Wow.
I would get up every day at 3 a.m. The first class was at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'd go do a 45-minute workout there and go straight to work. And they taught us how to meal prep,
Nice.
portion control, right? And ever since then, that's where I've been. That was 5 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was not until and yeah, it was also therapy. It was also my therapy. Like I got in a bad work accident where I burned my face. I had two skin graft surgeries. I was in the hospital for 10 days.
Oh, wow.
And that was my therapy. I'd wake up with nightmares. I was in doubt and self-regret,
Right.
and I would just go to the gym. I have a little gym here in my garage.
Mhm.
Um, and it helped, right? And then another thing I did for that was to go see a psychologist, you know. Um, and once I started getting good size and good body definition,
Mhm.
people started asking me more and more, "Man, what do you do?
Right.
How are you doing it?" I knew exactly what to do, but I just didn't really know how to coach people. So, like I said, if there's a goal you want to reach and you don't know how, you have to hire a coach. So I hired a coach to show me what programs to use, how to train people with nutrition, how to set their macros,
Okay.
right? The limits of protein, carbs, and fats. And now I started a coaching business, which was also amazing for me because I've never really invested anything in myself, right? Um, I never invested any money in any entrepreneurships or
Yep.
anything, and now I coach people. I have clients that are losing weight.
Amazing.
They quit drinking. Their confidence is building because they're happier with themselves. They're happier with the way they look. They're becoming better husbands, better wives, stronger mindsets. And that's what it all comes down to is whatever you start thinking um, is what you're going to become, right? Um, and it's been amazing. That's been really
Nice.
fulfilling to me because growing up, like I said, I would always, because I was hurt, I would hurt people. I was lying to people. I would steal from people, just put them down. And now it's I'm helping people. You know, I'm helping people through my Instagram. It's reps and double time,
Nice.
and um, I get a few clients signing up every week, and it's great. It's great sharing their wins
Oh
with
man. It's a
with
big
everybody.
deal. It's a
Yeah.
big deal, big deal. I mean, here as you talk about what you're doing now, really, it really sounds like you sort of figured out what you're meant to do, or I mean, your purpose, if you will, like what you're
Yeah.
here to do, because you sounds like you're doing that, you're helping others.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing is, when I was off from my accident, my uncle, the one who actually I called that night I quit drinking, he wanted to get together. He goes, "Let's sit down, let's have lunch." Um, and he asks me, "Why do you think you're still here?" And I said, "I just think I got lucky." And he's like, "It's got nothing to do with luck." He says, God kept you here for a purpose." And at that time, I didn't know what it was. I wasn't sure. And it wasn't until I realized, man, you could help people. You could coach people on fitness and nutrition, right? That's the only thing that I was really thinking about at first. And once I talked to my coach, he goes, bro, he goes, you got so much more than that. He goes, you overcame alcoholism, you were on the verge of divorce, and um you have a huge story to share. And he says every part of your life can be an inspiration for what you overcame.
Totally, totally. It's so easy in the moment when you're going through a difficult period to think that no one understands what you're going through or know what it's like. But when they say, well, hey, I do, and here's what I did, it just changes the whole
Yeah.
dynamic because you don't think you're alone, you don't think you're isolated. You know where the answer is because you see in others. And so again, going back to the whole sharing, why that's always such an amazing thing to do.
Which was even hard, right? I mean, let alone sharing um my thoughts or my emotions with my wife, about us, our future together. Um, Now I just share everything to everybody that follows me on Instagram, everybody that follows me on Facebook. I share my story because that night when I got burned, I like to say that, that it burned my ego also,
Sure.
because you have to let go of your ego. You have to be vulnerable to be able to share all those things, everything that we're talking about now, how, I was hurt as a child, and I felt like I had no confidence. I felt alone. Um, it's it's something brand new, it's life invigorating.
Man, it totally is. Man, it totally, totally, totally is. And I love the fact that you run into something and you plow through, right, Daniel, and you plow through and you move on to the next, and then you take something, you grow and help to nurture into something beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, the confidence to do something like that. I mean, where'd that come from? Because I mean, self-confidence is a big thing for people, right? And uh, how did you acquire that to be able to do what you're doing now?
The confidence came from everybody that was giving me compliments, you know. It actually it really blew up my confidence. Me and my wife went to Coachella, big music festival down here,
Mhm.
2 years ago, and this was right after my accident. I still had to wear a really big hat because I couldn't have my face in the sun for a full year.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
was about 9, 10 months after my accident, and I walked around. I took my shirt off. It was hot, took my shirt off. I'm looking around, and I could see everybody like checking me out, and men were giving me like, "Dude, you're ripped," and they're like, "You're crazy," like because I still had that low level of self confidence.
Yeah.
But walking away that weekend, and I was like, man, that felt awesome. Having having other people recognize your hard work
Sure.
is this huge confidence builder, and that's something that I know a lot of people lack is self confidence and self worth, and that's what I'm trying to help them with.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, again, it's when I think about all that you've done and you continue to do, it just speaks to the journey, right? And as you know, every journey starts with that first step. So for that person that's out there that's listening, that's uncertain or unsure and wondering, what needs to happen to make that first step, what would you tell that individual?
I would say find somebody that's in a position you want to be in. Reach out to them, ask them how they did it. You
Mm,
know, what was your system? And that's what I share every day. I share that every day on my Instagram. I share my wake up time. I post my workout. I show my foods, and I talk about what I've overcame. Because I'm here for a reason, and
yes.
that's to help other people.
Yes.
No more selfish desires.
Right.
Everything I do. The only time I'm selfish is when I wake up and after my workout.
Right.
That's for me, but really that's still for everybody else because I'm showing you what's possible.
Right. Right.
You know, a
And
lot of
that
people say they don't. A lot of people say they don't have time. Everybody's got enough time, but we're just not using it right.
gotcha. I love it. I love it. I love it. Daniel, this is so awesome. I love the way, again, that you just taken something, series of misfortunes, and turn them into something beautiful. And I absolutely commend and applaud you for doing so.
Thank you.
For our listeners who want to learn more about you or catch up with you, or maybe even going through your coaching programs, where can we send them?
Instagram's probably the best one right now. My Instagram handle is reps and double time. Or you can just search Daniel Spencer. I'm sure it'll pop up.
Sure.
On Facebook, I'm also on Facebook, Reps and Double Time. I have a YouTube channel that I'm not really getting into a whole lot more, but I want to try and get more of my cooking, my recipes and stuff like that on there. But it
Amazing.
just takes a little bit of time.
Amazing. Well, listen, take your time and continue to build as you've done. I've done a phenomenal job. Again, I applaud you for all your efforts, the way you've sort of turned your life around and saved your family, and
Thanks.
now giving so much to the world. So, congratulations. And again, thank you for making the time being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.